And we are live. I am going to post this link to social media.
I'm going to get all my screens on one screen so I'm not looking off to the side.
Sure.
Still working on my screen setup.
Oh, I didn't tag you. Let's get in the comments. Yeah, I'm going to. Hit post.
All right, we're on the homepage, dude. We are on the homepage of ESPN, Mr. Rudolph.
Really?
For college football, ESPN.go.com, college football. Overlooked no more. Mason Rudolph leads Cowboys college football playoff charge.
Nice. Okay, so what we want to do, first of all, if you are watching this either live or streaming after we've recorded it, welcome. My name is Chris Armstrong. My co-host with me today is EJ Hayes. Just to give you a little quick intro to us, we are both in Oklahoma. We're both graduates of Oklahoma State, so we're going to have a very orange slant to our chat. We are actually going to try and take our orange colored glasses off every now and then. So really, we're just kind of testing this thing out just to see if we can do anything with it. Probably next season. But just to let you know what's going to happen, we are going to have about a 30-minute intro or 30-minute show here. Our first segment is we're going to talk specifically about the college playoffs and the rankings, and that's going to go for about 10 minutes or so. The second segment is going to be previewing upcoming games, probably with a lean towards Oklahoma State, but we'll preview upcoming games. Mostly that will affect the college playoff landscape. And then the last segment we're going to have is EJ and I are actually going to take sides of a non-OSU game, and we're going to see we're going to try and put ourselves in the shoes of two different teams' fans, and we're going to argue out why our team is going to win or why we're going to beat the other team.
We're going to battle.
We call it the battle. So just to try and give a non-OSU spin to it and bring in more Big 12 stuff. So let's just go ahead and get this started. So the college football playoff rankings came out. This is week 3. Right now we have number 1, as always, or as has been the whole time now, is Clemson.
So Clemson was first in the first ratings?
Weren't they?
Or Ohio State was first in the first college football playoff.
See,
does it go week to week? I think it does. Oh, yeah.
All right. You've called me out on it. I'm going to have to go check.
So I got it pulled up. So week 8, week 9. So and I think this is important to talk about.
Absolutely.
Because so week 10 was the first. You're right. Week 10 was the first college football playoff ranking, and Ohio State and Baylor were 1 and 2 in the AP poll. Clemson was 3rd in the AP poll. And then when the college football playoff, the first week it comes out, week 10, you've got Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, Baylor 6. Okay, so let's talk about what just happened.
Yeah, let me correct you real quick, though. It looks like the first playoff ranking came out week 9, or at least that's what I'm seeing on collegefootballplayoff.com.
Who was 1?
It was the exact same rankings you said: Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, Alabama,
Okay.
in the top 4.
Mine says week 10, but it may be the same exact list.
Okay.
So, and actually, I've got the AP. So that week's AP right next to the college football playoffs. So AP has Ohio State, Baylor, Clemson, and the playoffs have Clemson, LSU, Ohio State. Now, LSU at the time was 7-0. That's
Right.
fine.
Yep.
Who had they beaten then? They had beaten Mississippi State, Auburn, who are ranked at this moment. They beat Florida at the last minute, or I should say it was a close game, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so and then they lost to Alabama and Arkansas in subsequent weeks after that came out. So, okay, so let's talk about what we're seeing. Obviously, this is we said our name, didn't we? We're the Vitamin B12.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm sorry. I left
You got to
that
start with branding, right? So this is the Vitamin B12 podcast, and obviously, we're going to have a Big 12 slant. And why we wanted we were going to start this next season, but why we wanted to start it now is because we feel like we're getting slanted. We feel like we're getting hosed, if not screwed, in this deal. So right there in week 10, the first playoff, Baylor is 2, but drops, or I shouldn't say drops, but appears as 6 in the first. Mm-hmm. TCU is 5, shows up at 8 in the college playoff rankings. What are they looking at? Like, I've read so much stuff over the last 2 weeks, and at this point, Joel Klatt, et cetera, and his family at Fox, I actually am starting to believe these guys are onto something. Are we getting punished because we don't have a championship game? I mean, think about that. If you're getting punished because you don't have a championship game, and a Big Ten school does not play every Big Ten school.
Right.
They play half of them, and then the other half of their schedule is powder puffs, and then they have to play a big one at the end. Okay. Or the Big 12 has to go through the gauntlet of every team. Well, yeah, we have a couple powder puffs, but we also have some really good mid-level guys, and those guys battle it out. You can't tell me that Texas Tech isn't someone that everybody freaks out about. They beat Arkansas, and Arkansas just beat LSU. So I don't understand the idea. So I think when the Big 12 started this, they thought, because we'll have one true champion, because we play everybody, we know who will be the best. Well, is that better or worse than having a championship game? Because championship game is basically you play half of them, and then if somebody stumbles, you pay the other half, and you put somebody stumbles, and you either get in the game or don't, and then you have a good game or not. Reminds me of the time when Kansas State played OU, and OU was by far the dominant team, but Kansas State killed them in the Big 12, championship.
Yeah.
Were they a better team 9 times out of 10? I doubt it. Maybe not. It definitely shows you something, but it's always one of those things where what makes it better than playing every single team and letting the numbers speak for themselves?
Right. So I wonder if this even goes back to last year, where Baylor and TCU were vying for the championship. And from what I've heard, the Big 12 commissioner was really pushing for Baylor and TCU to kind of be co-champions. Now, it goes against like the whole marketing plan of one true champion. Yeah. But they were pushing for co-champions in the hopes that we would get a Big 12. We would get 2 Big 12 teams in major bowl games. And what ended up happening is we got 0.
Well, Baylor went to a BCS bowl, didn't they? Or whatever you call them now. And got their teeth kicked in by Central Florida or whoever that was, Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Who was that last year? Anyway, Baylor embarrassed us pretty bad last year.
Well,
TCU crushed whoever they played.
Really, in the postseason last year, the Big 12 basically embarrassed themselves, minus TCU.
And OSU. We won.
Yeah, we did win.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. We had a lot of teams lose last year, though.
Yes, we did.
In the postseason.
And does that go into a college football playoff picture of, these guys they can't even basically win their bowl game Why are we going to allow them to be in a college football playoff? Now, the thing about it is I haven't put my finger on it of what's going on yet, because part of me is just kind of so internally angry that I haven't been able to rationally think about what's going on. And part of me thinks, you know what, if you just win, just go undefeated. OSU go undefeated, whatever, then just shut them all up. But what happens, and I'm saying this on show one because what happens if we go undefeated and we still get notched out by a one-loss team?
Yeah, so let's actually go back to the rankings right now. And what I have, the November 3rd rankings when they came out, you had Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, all undefeated. Fine. You have Alabama, 7-1 team, who lost to Ole Miss at home. You have Notre Dame, also 7-1. And then right behind them, you have Baylor, Michigan State, TCU, Iowa, all undefeated. So what I don't understand is if the college playoffs are to end right then, you'd have 3 undefeated teams and one loss team. And then your first 2 out is a 7-1 Notre Dame and then a 7-0 Baylor. Michigan State was really strong at that point. TCU was really strong at that point. So it looks to be like looking at the schedule, they were looking ahead, because then the next week Alabama and LSU played. So you are going to have basically the number 2 and the number 4 team in the college football playoff rankings play. So either way, you've got somebody. It's a good loss, right?
Right. And it's a good loss simply because they put the other person up there.
Because they put them there. So let's compare with the AP and the coaches poll. You have in the AP, LSU is actually number 4. Alabama is number 7. In the coaches poll is actually the same thing. LSU 4, Alabama 7. So what happens if and when Alabama beats LSU, and they do, and Alabama's not quite as high ranked?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They were setting up SEC to be at the top no matter what. Because if LSU beats a number 4, that cements them as either 1 or 2. And if Alabama beats LSU, that catapults them up. If you put Alabama down too far, then it's just, if you put them where 7-1 should be under some of the other stronger undefeated teams, that just inches. If Alabama beat LSU, then that would just inch them up to 5 or 6 or maybe 4. And then as LSU starts losing like they're doing, that win doesn't look as good, and that would bump Alabama down. They didn't want that. They specifically had those guys up top. And then they specifically had Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma State, all undefeated at that moment, down, so that situation would then happen to us. We start beating each other with not quality wins or losses, and it proves them right.
Right. And so week 10, OSU plays TCU, knocks them off pretty well, 20-point game. OSU jumps from, I think, 13 or 14 to number 8, which is a pretty good jump. The problem that I see is that TCU drops from 8 to 15, which tells me that they see TCU more as a pretender and less of a contender, even though TCU is a fantastic team. And at the current time, they just happen to have some injuries.
Yeah, and it is what it is. If all of Alabama's quarterback and main running back get hurt, they're going to be a different team. They'll still be good, but they'll be a different team. And maybe that's what their point is. Maybe Alabama's plug and play. Who the heck is their quarterback? Coker? Who knows him? Who cares about him? They're winning without star players, minus, of course, the guy that'll probably win the Heisman, because they are plug and play because they're so deep. So because they're so deep, one little thing like losing Boykin or whatever won't derail their whole system like it is TCU. Again, thus proving themselves right. That's not the point of the college football playoffs. Is March Madness whoever has the biggest bench, whoever has the most scholarships, whoever has the best freshman All-Americans? No, it's whoever wins. Whoever wins.
Yeah, and you compare it. That's why it's called March Madness, because it's crazy and there's always some crazy upsets. But that's part of the fun of it.
But it's pure.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not tainted by humans who have some sort of agenda.
Right. So what I'd like to move to now is you've got the college football playoff committee seemingly talking out of both sides of their mouth, and what they're saying is, oh, Alabama, especially Ohio State, they have their best football in front of them, meaning they're going to get better. They're not quite as good right now, but they're going to get better. But on the other hand, they're saying, okay, Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor, OU, you guys are all backloaded. So, you'll get your chance to shine. But if you don't, but we've already had some quality wins. And if you don't put us up there to begin with, our fall is going to be much greater.
Exactly. And
our catapulting, our rise is not going to be as great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you throw boiling water in freezing cold water, it's still going to be cold, lukewarm to cold. But if you throw boiling water on hot water, it's going to still be hot, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they're like every week they just throw a cup of ice water in whatever the Big 12 is doing, which just takes them down just a notch. When somebody throws a cup of boiling water in there, it doesn't take them up enough to get over the threshold, and they're setting themselves up to be right.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
Exactly, and that's the SEC for you. I mean, they can say the SEC is strong front to back. Well, that's just simply not true. You have good teams. Don't get me wrong. Alabama is a good team year in and year out since Saban has been there. But Auburn's terrible this year. Arkansas is not that great. Vanderbilt's terrible. Florida was terrible for the last few years. They're pretty good this year.
Yep.
They have ups and downs just like everybody else. Hey, guess what? OSU played Alabama in the Independence Bowl and beat them within my distant memory because I was at the game. So don't tell me Alabama's been good for the rest of the time, because people who have short memories think that, right? Alabama has not always been amazing, right? So, and we can talk about this next week, but the juggernaut theory, I think that's a good, we can kind of get into that. I think the idea is pretty simple, that I think it's describing what you're talking about. The better teams, whoever they are, many times it's the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the USCs, the OUs, these big name, Texas, the big name guys get the benefit of the doubt. Like Ohio State hanging up top without a single top 25 win. Yeah. Why? Because they won last year and they proved it last year. Well, that's last year. Well, they have the same players, and that's last year. If they need to, you have to schedule every year. You can't go on last year.
Right. Yeah, and that's really, if you want to boil down to it, that's what gets us about like preseason rankings as well. Like they put Ohio State at the top because they won it last year, which is fine. But then you look at their schedule, and they have played 0 ranked teams thus far. Granted, they have Michigan State and Michigan coming up.
Well, they're backloaded just like the Big 12, so they should be down in the rankings if we're going to play fair.
I mean, yeah, if that's your test or that's your standard, then absolutely.
And we need to wrap this up. But one question I have is if Texas and OU were undefeated right now, or one of them beat each other, but basically undefeated minus their own game, would this be a different story because of the juggernaut theory? Would this be a different story if someone besides Oklahoma State or TCU or Baylor, who is hotter teams right now, weren't at the top?
You swap Oklahoma State or Baylor's uniforms for Texas or OU's uniforms, and are we having the same conversation?
Well, I think it's evident that OU is ranked as high as they are. Now, don't get me wrong. That was a great win over Baylor.
Absolutely.
That was a great win. They showed that they're ready to play. Mm-hmm. Well, they're a 9-1 team, right?
Yep.
So, they're not over any undefeateds besides Houston at this point.
Yeah.
But
I still want to say I really want to be that person that says, that just win and you're in, or, the rankings don't matter until the very end. I so want to be that person, but I can't believe that. Just because
it's like you don't want to go there with your heart, because if it happens, you're going to be the team. Like I'm specifically talking about Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
That literally, I believe we were the ones that caused the college football playoff in 2011.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to be the ones that either expand it or, I don't know, cause the Big 12 to disintegrate or add some random team so that we can have a championship. I mean, yeah, let's add Memphis. They're a hot team today. Let's add Memphis. I heard that. Are you crazy? I mean, they'd be good in basketball, I suppose.
Yeah.
But are you going to add another Kansas to your schedule, or are you going to add like a BYU or someone who's real, right?
Right. So,
I mean, again, this is. I mean, we can continue this next week, but we need to be watching. And I think if you see this at all during the week, you need to watch Joel Klatt's stuff. The Fox News former Colorado Buff quarterback. He's been ripping ESPN and the SEC bias. I mean, this guy is on a roll. I mean, it's like he is slinging some crazy. So,
and I've seen him on the Herd show, whatever his name is, Colin Cowherd's show, and he is. To me, and again, Big 12 bias, he seems to have the straightest, or at least a grip on the bias that the committee has. Okay, so let's move into our next segment real quick. Let's look forward to the next games and this next week and talk about what could affect the college playoff landscape and specifically the Big 12. So this week we have. Let's start off for the 11 o'clock games. We have West Virginia at Kansas and Iowa State at K-State. And now I do want to say that you said earlier, are you going to add another Kansas to our schedule? And that Big 12 had some pretty decent mid-majors. I got to say, looking at Iowa State, West Virginia, K-State, those are all pretty quality teams that have had down years. I think you could probably throw them around any year and it's almost a crapshoot whether they're good or not.
I think because Oklahoma State beat all those teams, that all of a sudden changed the Big 12 to a very top-heavy, bottom-heavy situation, right? Nobody really upset anybody, right? I mean, those who should have won at this point did win, and then when Oklahoma State beat TCU, that kind of mismanaged it a little bit. But really, Oklahoma State. I mean, when we had very close games, don't get me wrong, we had, that West Virginia, that Kansas State, that Texas, those games could have went either way, honestly. And because of that, all those teams look a lot worse because, like, Oklahoma State had actually won those close games. So, a West Virginia schedule looks like it's pretty bad, or even a Texas Tech schedule looks like it's pretty bad. But those teams play hard, and they would give anybody in the country fits.
Yeah,
like, I was nervous on every single one. I assure you.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say in Kansas, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. In 2011, maybe it was 2010, we just about lost to Kansas with Wheaton, Blackman, and all the guys.
Yep.
And so, and just like last week, TCU about bit it with those guys. So, I mean, it's like you got to play every week. This is not some, oh boy, we're playing Iowa State. Iowa State is pretty good. They have the worst luck ever, but they're pretty good. They're pretty solid. Their quarterback's good.
Yep.
They beat Texas 24-0. Yes, Texas is on a down year, but 24-0? Ouch.
Right.
That's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah, so
Texas played OU. Texas beat OU, and OU was really good. And Iowa State blanked them. You can't tell me that that's a powder puff team. I'm sorry. Right. Especially in Ames. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the schedule. K-State has not won a conference game yet, but they have also played at the times number 20 Oklahoma State, number 2 TCU, number 19 Oklahoma, a Texas team that is kind of bipolar but has shown up pretty late, number 6 Baylor, and then they played Texas Tech pretty close.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous. If you're Iowa State, you're looking at going, good Lord, how is it possible for the Big 12 to be weak?
Yeah. Now that was K-State. That was Kansas State. And
Oh,
I think Bill Snyder has actually lost a lot of upperclassmen. So you can pin that
same.
up.
Yeah, and he's a young team, just
Yeah.
like Oklahoma State was last year.
So you can pin, those losses on that. Iowa State has played roughly the same schedule: 3 TCU, 2 Baylor. They actually beat Texas. They lost to number 15 OU, and obviously number 8 us. But our game was 4 points. They've been beaten by 20 or so here and there. But again, they show up. They come to play. West Virginia has won 2 conference games versus Texas Tech and Texas. So, again, they've lost to all the ranked teams. Tech is actually off this week, it looks like, but they've lost to all the ranked teams as well, beat Iowa State and Kansas. Lost to West Virginia, I guess, but beat K-State. So, Big 12 is kind of a gauntlet right now.
Big time.
So the fact that we all play each other every year, it's not where we used to not have to play Nebraska.
Exactly.
Not have to play.
That was
Missouri.
like good days, especially when Oklahoma State was down. We were like, yes,
those are good years.
Nebraska. Yeah. We got, who would have been the powder puff?
We'd get Colorado at that point.
Yes, it was like, oh, thank God, Colorado. We can actually do something this year.
Colorado,
we can go to a better
Iowa
bowl.
State.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what the SEC is right there. Some years you don't have to play Alabama and LSU. Well, hallelujah, I can win
I get 3 more wins at that point.
Exactly. I can, I'm still in the SEC, so everybody thinks I'm awesome. Yeah. But I can do Middle Acorn State and all this other crap that they play. I mean, I'd like to pull up Alabama's schedule and just read some of those.
Actually, what's crazy is I have it up.
Do the most ridiculous one first.
And here's the thing about the SEC is they schedule their non-conference games for the end of the season, which is crazy. And one thing I heard today was, imagine if we had scheduled Central Michigan with the injuries that we have now. Like, that would be fantastic because we'd be fresh earlier. We'd get those hard games out of the way earlier. And then we would play these powder puffs when we're banged up. So this week, Alabama plays Charleston Southern Buccaneers.
See, what? Who? Like, I've never heard of that team.
Charleston Southern.
Are they a division? What division are they?
I guess would be they're an FCS team.
Right. So that's not Division I, right?
Right. So Alabama's played Wisconsin, number 20 Wisconsin. They've played Middle Tennessee. Second game. They lost to Ole Miss. They played University of Louisiana Monroe.
And Ole Miss sucks, by the way. So that's basically like losing to Iowa State.
Played Georgia, Arkansas, A&M, Tennessee, LSU, Mississippi State. And they have Auburn last game of the season. So they didn't have to play, I guess, Florida.
Yeah, LSU played Florida. So they didn't have to play Florida, which is the best team in the East Division, right?
Yep. I guess they didn't get to play Vanderbilt, who is not very good this year, or Kentucky, or Missouri. So, it's just – let's see. They play Auburn, who is terrible this year.
Although Auburn plays them well, it's almost like the whole –
Sure, sitting at 5-5.
Yeah. So, I mean – carry on to the next. So we
it's just one of those things.
State. Who else we got? So obviously Baylor and Oklahoma State, and then TCU and OU, right?
Yep.
So that actually brings us to our next segment. So obviously those games are going to be big. So number 10 Baylor, number 6 Oklahoma State. Baylor coming off a loss at OU. So OU, TCU, and Baylor all have one loss. And then TCU against OU. Now, we're going to call this the battle. Okay, so this segment's going to be basically why my team will win. Now, the cool thing about this is, if we're OSU fans, obviously OU is not our team, but we're going to get into character, if you will. We're going to get past our biases, and we're going to put our mind in the fan, in our mind as a fan of an OU Sooner, right? So that's why Chris is going to take OU, and I'm going to take TCU.
That's fine. I have some OU relatives that are OU fans. So
okay, so who wants to go first in this battle?
Let's say the visiting team. Let's say the visiting team gets to go first.
So we are at Oklahoma.
That would actually be
at Oklahoma. So TCU. Let me tell you what. People think we can't play all of a sudden because we, struggled with Kansas. Well, guess what? We have some injuries. We have over 7 starters out on defense alone. Our best player, actually both of our 2 best players are currently injured. However, we'll both have them back. We'll have them both back. Josh Stockton and Trevon Boykin will both play. And guess what? Boykin has been healed. Lots of people have been praying for him. His high ankle sprain, which is probably a knee. I'm not sure where the ankle starts and the knee begins. but the power of prayer will be in purple, okay? It'll be like a holy cloth of purple over Boykin. I tell you what, you think you're fast, Baker Mayfield. You've not seen nothing yet. Okay, so listen to me.
All right.
TCU is going to show OU what playing with a chip on their shoulder is. You thought you were chippy against Baylor, which was the craziest chippy game I've ever seen in my life. And it was awesome because none of my guys got kicked out for the week. But anyway, TCU has something to prove. You think you've arrived. I've seen stuff on Twitter where it's like, OU's college football playoff bound. I mean, we are in the playoffs because
it's going to happen.
Baylor. Well, guess what? Baylor is Baylor. Baylor. You beat a little girl who beat you last year. Just because little girls can beat you one year doesn't mean you're going to base your whole system and your whole existence on beating a girl in green.
All right. No, Baylor is legit. So if you watch that game, you saw hits go both ways, and it was a big-time battle. Now, you want to talk about smash-mouth football. That was some smash-mouth football that we laid on Baylor. Baylor punched back, but we ended up having the final one. Now, let me tell you why you're not going to win this weekend, TCU. You are banged up. You're too banged up. You may have prayer on your side, but that is not going to stop the juggernaut that is the Crimson and Cream. We have Baker Mayfield is going to scramble around and going to get stuff done. He's going to find out the wide receivers. Our running game was solid. So I'm going to tell you, you're banged up. You're too banged up for this to go your way. The Texas thing, I don't know what happened there, but we've forgotten about it. We have come to play.
I know what happened.
Baylor tried to punch us in the mouth. We punched right back.
The same thing happened at Texas. You got too competent. You were playing so well. You were rolling people. You roll into Texas thinking, oh, this is our year. Well, guess what? You're rolling
I think we rolled into Texas watching Texas burn, and that was it. But we're going up against you, and yeah, you lost last time. But coming up here, we're not going to make the same mistake again. We're not looking past you. You're ranked. TCU is a solid team. With Boykin back, Doxson back, they have weapons, so we're not going to look past you. That's just it.
Okay. I'm curious who won, so you leave it in the comments. Who won?
I got to say that was pretty hard for to try and do OU.
You did pretty good. You almost got fired up.
That's it. We're OU's 15th in passing, 26th in rushing, tied for second in points for.
What's TCU in passing?
Let me get over there.
Exactly.
I don't know. What are they?
They're high. Anytime you lose by 20 to Oklahoma State and still pass for 450, 60, 70, 80 yards.
Listen,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You have more total yards. You actually have more total yards both in yards passing and rushing.
See?
But here's the
We
thing.
didn't lose our tailback.
We have more points per game, and we allow fewer per game.
So the battle's over. Let's talk real talk. Yeah,
All right.
this is not going to be pretty. OU is going to crush TCU, especially if Doxson. I mean, well, not even Doxson. I think he's pretty much hobbled anyway. I mean, especially if Boykin is at all.
If he's not 100%.
No, with his legs. I mean, he doesn't just sit back and pass on you. He scrambles and passes.
Yeah.
And when he scrambles, he is a master.
He is amazing. And that's what keeps defenses honest, is knowing that he can take off and he can make you look silly at any time with his legs. And so having to defend that just makes it twice as hard.
So I think that brings us to the end of this week's show. So we're going to hone our skills a bit. We kind of winged this one. It's okay. We wanted to get going. We had several passionate conversations about this college football playoff, and I think as this forms, this is going to be an interesting, it's an interesting situation, and I think it's just going to come to a boil at some point when a Notre Dame. We didn't even talk about Notre Dame, who doesn't even have a conference. There is no conference championship because they just play whoever they want.
Right.
And, that's fine and all, but if you're not going to have a conference where you have to, play people who know you, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like people know us and we have to be on our toes. But, it's like you go to Notre Dame and I guarantee we walk into Notre Dame Stadium, that's going to be intimidating. And they use that to their advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't play the same people all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, why should they be rewarded for a situation like that? I don't understand that. Go undefeated and beat some top 10 teams. Okay, now let's do that. Don't lose. Don't go in and lose to teams and then expect to be in the playoff. I mean, you know what I'm saying. So
we have a ton of stuff to talk about next time. We didn't even get into like the college committee or how that figures into their bias or anything like that, and who's on it even. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about next time. Hopefully, in our eyes, hopefully OSU comes out on top this weekend and jumps up in the college playoffs. But we'll see. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna try and do this every week, or we're gonna try and play with it for the next couple of weeks at least. We do have a Q&A. If you visit the link that we post on our social media channels, you can ask questions. It'll take you to the YouTube page. You can ask questions. If we know you and can vet you or whatever, you might even get on air with us if that's your thing, just to ask your question. But we appreciate you watching and listening, and hopefully we will see you next week. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think we're good. I'm excited about next week, and it kind of gets me thinking about how it's more important than ever to just win, baby.
Yeah. All right. Final shot. What is one thing you think can fix the college playoff? And then we're out.
I was thinking about that, and the only problem. So I'm gonna say initially, and I'd like to answer this question every week, but I think I thought about that this week, and it's 8 teams. So you have the Power 5,
8 teams,
plus 3 at large.
Okay.
So that would enable it to be, the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, in the Pac-12, and then 3 remaining SEC teams. And then everybody would be happy.
3 remaining at-large teams, a.k.a. SEC teams.
Yes. I mean, Arkansas really needs to be up in the mix.
Yeah, they have the best football in front of them. I'm going to say the one thing that can fix it is let's get rid of the entire committee and replace them with
computers.
No, not computer. One computer and Dana Holgerson.
Ooh.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. Hopefully see you next week. I'm Chris. That's ZJ. This is the Vitamin B12 podcast. We'll see you next time.